a powerful, lonely CEO who breaks out in hives every time a woman gets close, hires a quiet, hard-working maid to run his house. And for the first time in 30 years, the reaction stops. He feels calm, hopeful, and terrified all at once. But this miracle comes with a mystery. Why is his allergy gone only with her nearby? Soon their secret closeness draws hungry cameras, cruel rumors, and a past neither expects. Will a lifetime of fear and public shame destroy their chance at love? Or will one simple act of kindness change everything? What would you risk to finally be seen? Elliot Hart stood at the glass podium, his reflection fragmenting across the polished boardroom table. 20 pairs of eyes fixed on him as he delivered the quarterly update with practiced precision. Quarter 3 revenues exceeded projections by 12%, he stated, clicking to the next slide. The crisp white collar of his tailored shirt suddenly felt constrictive. Our Asia-Pacific expansion remains ahead of schedule. Polite applause rippled through the room. Elliot managed a tight smile, hyper-aware of every face studying him. The first warning signs began, a prickling sensation creeping across his scalp like tiny needles. He forged ahead. Moving to operational efficiencies. The words caught as heat bloomed beneath his collar. Small bumps rose along his neck, itching intensely. Elliot resisted the urge to scratch. From her seat near the head of the table, Vivian Cole leaned forward, her manicured fingers steepled. Her gaze held a predatory gleam that made his skin crawl further. As you can see from the charts. His voice grew hoarse. The familiar metallic taste filled his mouth, sharp and acrid. Elliot loosened his tie slightly, fighting to maintain composure. Board member Henderson raised his hand. "Are you feeling all right, Mr. Hart?" The question drew every eye in the room. Elliot's chest tightened, each breath becoming shallow and labored. The presentation slides blurred before him. "Perhaps we should take a brief recess," someone suggested. Vivian's whisper carried clearly across the table. So much for our fearless leader. Red splotches crept up Elliot's neck as he fumbled with his water glass. His hands trembled, spilling drops onto his sleeve. The wheeze in his chest grew more pronounced. "Meeting adjourned for lunch," he managed, gathering his papers with unsteady fingers. The board members exchanged concerned glances as they filed out. Vivian brushed past, murmuring, "Better get that under control, Elliot. The board doesn't appreciate weakness." He gripped the podium, waiting for the room to clear. His skin felt like it was on fire, hives now visible above his collar. Lydia burst in as the last member left. "Elliot, what happened?" She rushed to his side, concern etched on her face. "I'm fine," he rasped, still struggling to breathe normally. "Like hell you are." She pressed a cool hand to his flushed neck. "This is getting worse. When was the last time you had a full night's sleep?" "I don't need—" "Stop." Lydia's voice was firm but gentle. "You can't keep doing this alone, living like a hermit in that huge house, working yourself to death. The company needs— You need help," she interrupted, "which is why I've hired someone." Elliot stiffened. "What?" "A housekeeper. She starts in 2 days." "Absolutely not. I don't want a stranger in my home." "Too bad." Lydia crossed her arms. "I've watched you retreat further into yourself ever since Mom left. These episodes are getting more frequent. You need someone there, making sure you eat properly, maintaining a normal schedule." "I maintain perfectly fine schedules," he protested. "Elliot." His sister's eyes softened. "You color-code your sock drawer and time your morning coffee to the minute. That's not maintaining, that's controlling. There's a difference." He slumped against the podium, suddenly exhausted. The hive still itched, but the worst of the attack was passing. The board saw, he said quietly. So what? You're human. Even CEOs get sick sometimes. Vivian will use this against me. Let her try. Lydia's jaw set stubbornly. Now, about the housekeeper, I don't need a babysitter. Good, because that's not what I hired. Her name's Sophie. She's completely professional, and she starts Thursday. Elliot recognized the tone. It was the same one Lydia had used when she was 8 and decided he needed a birthday party despite his protests. He'd ended up with 30 classmates in his carefully organized bedroom. 2 weeks, he conceded. Trial basis only. 1 month minimum, and you'll actually let her do her job. He sighed, straightening his tie. Fine, 1 month. Lydia smiled triumphantly. Good. Now go put some cream on those hives before your next meeting. And Elliot? She squeezed his arm. It's okay to let people help sometimes. He watched her leave, torn between gratitude and dread. The thought of a stranger disrupting his carefully ordered world made his chest tighten again. But as he caught his reflection in the window, flushed skin, loosened tie, the visible evidence of his weakness, he had to admit Lydia might have a point. 2 days. He could prepare for that. He'd need to create a detailed schedule, reorganize the guest room, establish clear boundaries. Mr. Hart. His assistant poked her head in. Your 1 o'clock is waiting. Elliot took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and reached for his mask of calm control. He had meetings to run, a company to lead. The chaos of his personal life would have to wait. But as he gathered his papers, his sister's words echoed. It's okay to let people help sometimes. He pushed the thought aside. He'd survived this long on his own. What difference could one housekeeper really make? Elliot surveyed the guest room for the 10th time that morning, his fingers trailing across the precisely folded linens. Each corner was tucked at exactly 45 degrees, the way his grandmother had taught him. The teacup collection on the shelf gleamed after its 3rd dusting, delicate bone china arranged by pattern and year. Requirements for live-in housekeeper position? He muttered, reviewing the ad Lydia had placed. Must be detail-oriented, discreet, and willing to maintain strict household schedules. His sister had handled the interviews, refusing to let him micromanage the process. He checked his watch. 2:45 p.m., 15 minutes until the new housekeeper arrived. His collar already felt tight, anticipating the familiar itch of hives. He'd doubled his antihistamine dose this morning, though the doctors still insisted his allergies were psychosomatic. The doorbell chimed at exactly 3:00 p.m. Elliot's heart stuttered as he descended the stairs, each step measured and controlled. Through the frosted glass, he could make out a petite figure waiting patiently. Maya Reyes stood on his doorstep, smaller than he'd expected. Her dark hair was neatly braided, and she wore simple black slacks with a cream-colored blouse. A worn apron was folded over one arm, and she carried a battered brown suitcase that had seen better days. Mr. Hart, she said, her voice soft but steady. I'm Maya. Thank you for this opportunity. He noticed her hands first, working hands with subtle calluses and short, practical nails. No polish, no jewelry except a simple silver watch. She smelled faintly of chamomile tea and something clean, like fresh laundry. Please, come in. His voice came out slightly hoarse. He waited for the familiar tightness in his chest, the crawling sensation across his skin. Nothing happened. Maya's shoes made no sound on the hardwood as she followed him upstairs. Her eyes took in everything, the precise arrangement of photos on the wall, the spotless surfaces, the careful order of his world. The guest room, he said, gesturing. Your room now, I suppose? She stepped inside, setting her suitcase down carefully. It's lovely. The teacups, are they Wedgwood? Some. The blue ones are Royal Copenhagen. He hovered in the doorway, watching as she unpacked with methodical efficiency. Each item emerged from her suitcase neatly folded. More uniforms, a few casual outfits, a small stack of paperback books. "I noticed the schedule in the kitchen," she said, arranging her toiletries on the dresser. "You prefer breakfast at 7 a.m. sharp?" "Yes, 2 soft-boiled eggs, whole grain toast, coffee with 1 sugar." The words came automatically. "I have specific dietary requirements, yes. Your sister provided detailed notes." Maya smiled, and something in Elliot's chest shifted slightly. "I understand you're allergic to several things." "It's complicated," he admitted, his hand unconsciously touching his collar. Still no itching, no tightness. The calm in her presence felt foreign, unsettling. Most things worth understanding are. She hung her apron on a hook, each movement precise but natural. "What else should I know about the household rules?" He launched into his carefully prepared list. "The laundry must be done on Tuesdays and Fridays. Sheets changed weekly, windows cleaned monthly. The silver needs polishing every—" He stopped, realizing she was taking actual notes in a small notebook. "Go on," she encouraged. "I want to get everything right." Her attention to detail should have reassured him. Instead, he found himself distracted by the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the quiet confidence in her movements. "The kitchen," he continued, less certainly. "Everything is organized alphabetically. Spices, canned goods. I noticed. Very efficient system." She finished writing and met his eyes. "Mr. Hart, I know change can be difficult. I'll do my best to work within your routines while helping where I can." The understanding in her voice made his pulse jump. He expected to feel exposed, defensive. Instead, that strange calm deepened. "I should let you settle in," he said, stepping back. "Dinner is at 6:30 p.m. I'll have everything ready." She smiled again, and this time he noticed the tiny crinkles at the corners of her eyes. He retreated to his study, closing the door carefully. His hand pressed against his neck, searching for hives that weren't there. The usual anxiety that came with disrupted routines was oddly absent. Through the wall he could hear her moving about the room, unpacking the rest of her belongings. The sounds should have set him on edge. They didn't. Hours later, he lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt different with her presence down the hall. Not invaded, as he'd feared, but warmer somehow. He kept seeing her smile, the gentle way she'd handled his grandmother's teacups, how she'd written down every detail of his carefully ordered world without judgment. His phone buzzed. Lydia checking in. How bad was the reaction? There wasn't one. He typed back. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. How could he explain something he didn't understand himself? For the first time in years, his skin felt comfortable, his breathing easy. Sleep remained elusive, but not from anxiety. Instead, he found himself replaying small moments, the grace of her movements, the hint of dimples when she smiled, the way she'd known the teacups were Wedgwood. The clock ticked past midnight. Down the hall, a floorboard creaked softly. Maya settling into her new room, into his carefully controlled life that suddenly felt less controlled, but somehow not worse for it. He touched his neck again, wonderment replacing confusion. No hives, no panic, just the lingering scent of chamomile and the memory of her smile. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as Elliot descended the stairs at precisely 6:55 a.m. The familiar scent of coffee mingled with something new, chamomile tea and fresh-baked bread. Maya stood at the counter, her dark hair neatly tied back, arranging his breakfast with careful precision. 2 soft-boiled eggs nestled in blue ceramic cups, Whole grain toast cut diagonally, coffee steaming in his usual mug. "Good morning, Mr. Hart," she said, her voice warm but professional. "Good morning." He settled into his chair, watching as she adjusted the place setting slightly. Her movements were efficient, yet gentle. Nothing like the nervous energy he usually felt from others in his presence. The eggs were perfect, cooked exactly 4 minutes. He found himself studying her as she moved about the kitchen, wiping surfaces that were already spotless, organizing items that were already in order. "I'll be in your study next," she said, refilling his coffee. "Unless you'd prefer I wait." "No, that's—" He cleared his throat. "That's fine." Throughout the morning, he was aware of her presence in a way that should have set his skin crawling. Instead, he found himself breathing more easily. The usual tightness in his chest had loosened, replaced by an unfamiliar lightness. At noon, she brought him a simple lunch, chicken soup and fresh bread. The soup was homemade, he realized, tasting herbs he couldn't name. "I hope it's not too presumptuous," she said, "but I noticed you had chicken stock in the freezer." "It's good," he said, surprised by how much he meant it. "Very good." She smiled, about to respond, when her phone buzzed. "Excuse me, Mr. Hart. It's my scheduled call with Marco." He nodded, expecting her to leave. Instead, she pulled out her phone right there, answering with visible joy. "Hey, sweetheart. How was school?" The boy on the screen was young, maybe 13, with Maya's warm brown eyes and gentle manner. He waved shyly. "Hi, Aunt Maya. It was okay. I got an A on my math test." "That's wonderful." Her face softened with pride. "Have you shown Grandma yet?" "She's resting. The new medication makes her sleepy." Marco's voice held careful maturity. "But I made her lunch before she took it, like you showed me." "Such a good boy." Maya's voice caught slightly. "I miss you both so much." "We miss you too. But this job pays better, right? Maybe we can get Grandma that new wheelchair soon?" Elliot found himself holding very still, soup forgotten. The tenderness in Maya's voice, the way Marco tried to be strong for her, it struck something deep in his chest. "That's the plan, sweetheart. Just a few more months of saving." She glanced at Elliot apologetically. "I have to go now. Be good for Grandma, okay?" "Always am." Marco waved again. "Love you, Aunt Maya." "Love you more." After ending the call, Maya tucked her phone away, composure returning. "I'm sorry for the interruption, Mr. Hart." "No need to apologize." His voice came out softer than intended. "Your nephew seems like a good kid." "The best." Pride and worry mixed in her expression. "He's had to grow up too fast, but he never complains." Elliot thought of his own childhood photo on the mantel, himself at Marco's age, already learning to hide his feelings. Children are more resilient than we think. His phone buzzed. Lydia reminding him about Dr. Patel. He texted back confirmation of next week's appointment, though he felt better than he had in years. His breathing came easier, his usual anxiety notably absent. Throughout the afternoon, he found himself aware of Maya's quiet presence. The sound of her dusting in the hallway, the gentle clink of teacups being arranged, the soft humming as she folded laundry. All of it should have disturbed his concentration. Instead, it felt oddly comforting. At 5 o'clock, he emerged from his study to find her examining the photographs on the mantel. She held his childhood photo with careful hands, the one taken just before his mother left, when smiling still came naturally to him. "You have kind eyes here," she said softly, not turning around. "They haven't changed as much as you might think." He stepped closer, looking at the photo over her shoulder. The boy in the image looked back with unguarded hope, before life taught him to be cautious. Maya's fingers traced the frame gently, and something in her touch made his chest ache. I was 8, he said, surprising himself. That summer everything changed. She set the photo down with profound care, adjusting it to its exact previous position. Sometimes change brings unexpected gifts. Their eyes met in the mirror above the mantel. The evening light caught the silver threads in her dark hair, the gentle wisdom in her face. For a moment, neither moved. Then she stepped back, professional mask returning. I should start dinner, unless you'd prefer to eat out. No, he said quickly. Here is good. She nodded and headed toward the kitchen. Elliot remained by the mantel, picking up the photo again. His younger self smiled up at him, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel the usual surge of loss and anger. Instead, he found himself holding the frame with unexpected tenderness, remembering how it felt to trust so openly. His fingers traced the same path Maya's had, and he realized his breathing had deepened, steadied. The sound of pots being arranged drifted from the kitchen, along with the scent of herbs and garlic. Simple, domestic sounds that were rapidly becoming familiar. Welcome, even. He replaced the photo carefully, adjusting it to perfect alignment. In the kitchen, Maya had started humming again, a soft, soothing melody that seemed to wrap around him like a gentle embrace. His phone buzzed again. Lydia confirming Dr. Patel's appointment. He answered automatically, but his attention remained on the kitchen sounds, on the strange lightness in his chest, on the way his carefully ordered world felt somehow warmer with Maya in it. The usual evening anxiety didn't come. Instead, he found himself looking forward to dinner, to more quiet moments in this newly peaceful house, to whatever unexpected gifts change might bring. The late afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen windows, painting Maya's workspace in warm amber as she washed dishes. Elliot found himself lingering at the counter, watching her methodical movements. 2 days of her presence had already shifted the house's atmosphere, less museum, more home. You don't have to do everything yourself, he said, picking up a dish towel. I can help dry. Maya's smile held gentle amusement. Old habits. In nursing, you learn to stay busy. You were in nursing? He carefully dried a plate, following her precise motions. Hospice care for 7 years. She handed him a teacup, her movements delicate around the fine china. I loved it, actually. Being there for people when they needed it most. What made you leave? Her hand stilled briefly in the soapy water. Marco needed me more. My sister, his mother, she wasn't equipped to handle a child. When Marco was 8, she just disappeared for a while. My mother was already struggling with her health, so I stepped in. Elliot's chest tightened at the word disappeared. He focused on drying the teacup, noticing a tiny chip along its rim. That must have been difficult. Less difficult than letting him go into the system. Maya's voice held no self-pity, just quiet certainty. Some choices make themselves. You just have to be brave enough to follow through. She reached for the chipped teacup in his hands, but he held it back, studying the imperfection. I can replace this one. Not everything broken needs replacing, she said softly. Sometimes the cracks just make things more interesting, more real. Their fingers brushed as she took the cup, and Elliot felt his pulse jump. The familiar heat started creeping up his neck, but different this time, more warmth than warning. Speaking of real, he said, forcing himself to maintain eye contact, I should explain about my condition. Maya set the cup down carefully, giving him her full attention. The kitchen's golden light softened her features, making it easier to speak. The doctors call it an allergy, but it's more complicated. When I'm stressed or in certain social situations. He trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't reveal too much. My body reacts. Hives, breathing difficulties. It's been happening since I was young. Since you were 8. Her question was gentle, remembering the photograph. He nodded, throat tight. The episodes are unpredictable, embarrassing. The board meeting the other day. He stopped, unable to continue. Maya picked up the chipped teacup again, running her thumb over its damaged edge. Sometimes our bodies tell the stories our hearts aren't ready to speak. The simple truth of her words hit him like a physical touch. He turned away, ostensibly to put away the dried plates, using the familiar motion to steady himself. It hasn't happened since you arrived, he said quietly to the cabinet. I don't know why. Maybe you just needed someone to share the weight for a while. She moved beside him, reaching past to place the teacup in its spot. Everyone does sometimes. Their proximity sent another wave of warmth through him, but no hives followed, no tightness in his chest, just a strange, unfamiliar feeling of safety. He cleared his throat. I'd like you to stay on. Full time, I mean, not just temporary. Are you sure? Her dark eyes searched his face. I come with complications. Marco visits on school breaks. My mother needs regular appointments. I have plenty of space. The words came easily, surprising him. And it would be good having life in the house again. She considered this, absently straightening the dish towel. It would help with Marco's tuition, and having steady income would mean better care for my mother. Then stay. He didn't mean for it to sound like pleading, but something in his voice made her expression soften. All right, she said. I'll stay. Relief flooded through him, followed by an emotion he couldn't quite name. Maya turned back to the sink, humming softly as she finished the last few dishes. Elliot remained beside her, drying each piece she handed him, their movements falling into an easy rhythm. The kitchen grew darker as the sun set, but neither moved to turn on the lights. In the gentle twilight, he could almost pretend this was normal, this quiet domesticity, this peaceful sharing of space, that he deserved such simple comfort. Maya's humming blended with the soft clink of dishes, the running water, the distant sound of traffic outside. Ordinary sounds that somehow felt extraordinary. He found himself memorizing each detail, the scent of dish soap, the warmth radiating from her presence, the way shadows played across her hands as she worked. When the last dish was dried and put away, they stood in comfortable silence. The kitchen held the lingering warmth of their shared task, like a space between breaths. I should check on dinner, Maya said finally, moving towards the stove. The roast should be done soon. Elliot nodded, reluctant to break the moment, but knowing he should return to his evening routine. His appointment with Dr. Patel loomed 3 days away, but for now that felt distant and unimportant. What mattered was this: the gentle domesticity of a shared evening, the understanding in Maya's eyes when she spoke of choices and courage, the way his usual anxieties seemed to quiet in her presence. He watched her check the oven, her movements sure and practiced. The kitchen smelled of herbs and comfort, of possibility and peace. Something in his carefully ordered world had shifted, making space for this unexpected warmth. Maya glanced up, catching his gaze. Her smile held no judgment, no demands, just quiet acceptance. He managed a small smile in return, surprising himself with how natural it felt. The chipped teacup sat in its place among the others, its imperfection barely visible in the gathering dusk. Like a secret shared between friends, a truth waiting to be fully told. The medical office smelled of antiseptic and fresh coffee. Elliot sat stiffly in the examination room, his tie perfectly straight, watching Dr. Aaron Patel review his medical history. Interesting pattern here, Dr. Patel said, his voice calm and methodical. The episodes began at age 8, correct? Yes. Elliot focused on the diplomas lining the wall, though they've gotten worse in recent years. Dr. Patel nodded, making a note. Let's start with some baseline tests. Shirt off, please. Elliot complied, the cool air raising goosebumps on his skin. Dr. Patel pressed a stethoscope to his back. Deep breath in and out. The familiar wheezing sound emerged. Dr. Patel moved to the spirometer, explaining each step with practiced patience. Elliot exhaled into the device, watching the numbers fluctuate. Your lung function shows mild restriction, Dr. Patel observed. Now for the skin test. He prepared a tray of allergen drops, each precisely labeled. These are common triggers: dust mites, pollen, various foods. We'll place a small amount on your skin and watch for reactions. The tiny pricks barely registered as Dr. Patel worked methodically across Elliot's forearm. They waited in silence, the clock ticking steadily. A knock at the door interrupted their vigil. Maya stood there, holding a thermos. I brought your afternoon tea, Mr. Hart. Should I leave it at reception? That's very thoughtful, Dr. Patel said before Elliot could respond. Actually, would you mind staying a moment? I'd like to ask about any reactions you've observed. Maya glanced at Elliot for permission. He nodded slightly. The episodes have decreased significantly since I started working there, she said, setting down the thermos. Almost none in the past week. Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose. Interesting. And the home environment hasn't changed otherwise. Just regular cleaning, organic products, nothing special. Thank you. Dr. Patel made another note as Maya quietly excused herself. Turning back to Elliot's arm, he studied the test sites. No significant reactions to any common allergens. He sat back, removing his glasses. Mr. Hart, are you familiar with psychosomatic conditions? Elliot tensed. You think it's all in my head? Not at all. The physical symptoms are very real. But sometimes our bodies respond to emotional triggers as intensely as physical ones, especially when those triggers connect to early experiences. The clock ticked louder in the silence. Elliot stared at his unmarked arm. You mentioned the symptoms began at age 8. Dr. Patel continued gently. Was there a significant event around that time? Elliot's jaw tightened. My mother left, but that's not relevant to my condition. On the contrary, trauma, particularly childhood abandonment, often manifests in physical symptoms. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. The words hit too close to carefully guarded wounds. Elliot reached for his shirt, but Dr. Patel held up a hand. One more test, if you don't mind. I'd like to try something. He pulled out a small device. This measures heart rate variability, how your body responds to stress. Just relax and breathe normally. The monitor beeped steadily as Dr. Patel asked casual questions about work, daily routines, recent changes. When he mentioned Maya's name, the pattern shifted noticeably. Fascinating, Dr. Patel murmured. Your nervous system shows significant calming in response to her presence, even just discussing her. This aligns with the reduced episodes you've reported. Elliot frowned. What does that mean? It means your body recognizes safety. Dr. Patel removed the monitor. The absence of symptoms around her suggests your nervous system is learning to regulate itself in response to consistent care and support. The clinical language helped Elliot maintain his composure, but something inside him trembled at the implications. I'd like to propose a combined treatment approach, Dr. Patel said, writing in his notepad. We'll start with desensitization therapy for the physical symptoms, but I strongly recommend pairing this with cognitive therapy to address the underlying emotional triggers. You want me to talk about my childhood? Eventually, yes, but at your own pace. He handed Elliot 2 prescriptions. For now, these breathing exercises will help manage acute episodes, And this is a referral to an excellent cognitive therapist who specializes in trauma-related somatic responses. Elliot stared at the papers, his carefully ordered world shifting beneath him. The mind and body are interconnected, Mr. Hart. Healing one often requires healing both. In the reception area, Maya sat reading a magazine. She looked up as Elliot emerged, her presence sending that now familiar wave of calm through him. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, tucking the prescriptions into his pocket. The medical explanation felt both unsettling and oddly validating, a key clicking into a long rusted lock. "Dr. Patel wants me to try some new approaches," he said carefully. Maya gathered her things, falling into step beside him. "That sounds promising." The afternoon sun warmed them as they walked to the car. Elliot found himself breathing deeper, the weight of diagnosis and possibility settling into his bones. "Your tea," Maya remembered, holding out the thermos. "It's chamomile. Good for nerves." He accepted it, their fingers brushing briefly. No hives appeared. No chest tightness followed. Just that strange, growing sense of safety he was starting to recognize. The drive home was quiet, each lost in thought. Elliot's mind kept returning to Dr. Patel's words about bodies remembering, about safety and healing. The prescriptions in his pocket felt like the first step on an uncertain path. But as he glanced at Maya's profile, serene in the passenger seat, he felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Hope, small but persistent, like the first green shoot breaking through winter soil. Elliot sat in his leather chair, staring at Dr. Patel's handwritten instructions. The study's warm lamplight cast long shadows across the Persian rug as evening settled in. He opened the breathing exercise app on his phone, its interface clean and minimal. "Breathe in for 4 counts," the calm voice instructed. "Hold for 7. Release for 8. He tried to follow, but his first attempt came out shallow and quick. The second attempt wasn't much better. By the third try, he managed to establish a rhythm, counting silently as his chest rose and fell. In, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The grandfather clock in the corner marked time with steady ticks. Gradually, the tension in his shoulders began to ease. He noticed small details he usually overlooked: the faint scent of lemon polish on his desk, the subtle creak of the floorboards, the way shadows danced on the ceiling. A gentle knock interrupted his concentration. "Dinner's ready," Maya called softly through the door. "Coming?" His voice sounded different, looser somehow. In the dining room, Maya had set 2 places at the corner of the long table, making the space feel less formal. Steam rose from bowls of homemade soup, and the bread smelled fresh-baked. "I hope you don't mind," she said, gesturing to the casual setup. "It seemed cozier this way." Elliot nodded, surprisingly grateful for the intimacy of the arrangement. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the clink of spoons the only sound. "The breathing exercises," he found himself saying. "They remind me of something." Maya looked up, waiting. "A hospital corridor, when I was 8. The memory surfaced with startling clarity. St. Mary's General. The walls were that institutional green that's supposed to be calming. He could see it now, the endless hallway stretching before him, fluorescent lights humming overhead. His small hands clutching a quarter his father had given him to be brave. The coin was warm from his constant fidgeting, smooth against his palm. "The nurses kept telling me to take deep breaths," he continued, his soup forgotten. "Like counting sheep, they said, but I couldn't focus on counting. All I could smell was antiseptic and floor wax." Maya set down her spoon, listening intently. The quarter had a date, 1982. I remember because I kept turning it over and over, reading the numbers until they lost meaning. His voice grew distant. Someone brought me a juice box, apple, I think, but the straw was bent, and I couldn't. He trailed off, the memory blurring at the edges. There was more, the sharp click of heels on linoleum, urgent whispers, a door closing, but he couldn't bring himself to continue. Maya didn't press. Instead, she stood and moved to the kitchen, returning moments later with 2 steaming mugs of tea. The familiar scent of chamomile filled the air. My mother used to say that memories are like tea leaves, she said, setting a mug before him. They need time to steep properly. She sat back down, her hand resting briefly on his forearm. The touch was light, but Elliot felt its warmth spread through him. No hives appeared. No tightness constricted his chest. Just that inexplicable sense of safety he was beginning to associate with her presence. They finished their meal quietly, the evening settling around them like a comfortable blanket. Maya cleared the dishes despite his protests, and Elliot found himself drifting to the living room. The couch leather was soft and warm from the nearby radiator. He meant to review some work emails, but the rhythm of Maya moving in the kitchen, water running, cupboards opening and closing, lulled him into a strange peace. The breathing exercise had left him oddly drained, but in a good way, like muscles after a long-needed stretch. His tablet slipped slightly in his grasp. The quarter from his memory seemed to ghost across his palm, that small, warm circle of metal that had anchored him through those endless hospital hours. He couldn't remember what happened after, but perhaps that was enough remembering for one night. Maya's footsteps approached, then paused. Through half-closed eyes, he saw her drape a soft throw blanket over his legs. The gesture was so careful, so matter-of-fact that something in his chest ached. "Rest," she murmured, dimming the lights. "Tomorrow's another day." Elliot wanted to respond, to maintain his usual composure, but exhaustion pulled at him. The last thing he registered was the gentle click of Maya's bedroom door down the hall, and then he was drifting, the breathing app's rhythm still echoing in his mind. In, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3. The quarter spun in his dreams, catching light, holding secrets he wasn't quite ready to face. But for now, in the quiet of his home, their home, he slept deeper than he had in years, the tension in his shoulders finally beginning to unwind. Maya's blanket kept him warm through the night, its soft weight like a guardian against old memories and new possibilities. The grandfather clock marked time steadily, its rhythm joining with his breathing in the peaceful darkness. "It's a small event," Lydia insisted, perched on Elliot's office chair early Saturday morning. "The Metropolitan Care Foundation's annual breakfast. 200 people max." Elliot's fingers tightened around his teacup, one of Maya's morning brews. "You know how these things usually go for me." "Actually," Lydia said, glancing meaningfully at Maya, who was arranging fresh flowers by the window. "I don't think they'll go that way anymore." Maya turned, her hands still fragrant with lily stems. "The foundation supports home healthcare workers and family caregivers. It's a good cause." Elliot watched her arrange the last bloom, noting how the morning light caught her careful movements. No hives had appeared in the past week, even during board meetings. "Maybe. I'll go," he said quietly. "If you'll attend with me, Maya." The smile she gave him was worth the risk. The Metropolitan's garden room glowed with warm lighting Saturday evening, crystal chandeliers casting soft shadows across cream tablecloths. Simple centerpieces of white roses and baby's breath graced each table, complementing the room's understated elegance. Programs printed on recycled paper detailed the foundation's mission, supporting those who care for others. Elliot adjusted his tie for the 10th time, standing just inside the entrance. Maya touched his arm gently. "Remember your breathing," she murmured. 4 counts in. He inhaled slowly, drawing strength from her steady presence. She looked different tonight, elegant in a deep blue dress that made her eyes shine. Professional, but warm, like everything about her. "Mr. Hart," the foundation director approached, beaming. "We're so honored you could join us. And this is Maya Reyes," she supplied smoothly. "I work with Mr. Hart." Elliot felt a flicker of something at her words, pride, possession, but before he could analyze it, they were being led to their table. Lydia was already seated, looking pleased with herself. "The program starts in 15 minutes, she said. "And Elliot, they'd love a few words from you during the opening remarks." His chest tightened momentarily, but Maya's hand found his under the table, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. The room filled steadily with attendees, healthcare workers, family advocates, donors in suits and cocktail dresses. From the corner of his eye, Elliot spotted Vivian Cole in crimson, her expression calculating as she watched him from her table near the stage. When the foundation director called him to speak, Elliot rose slowly. Maya's encouraging nod followed him to the podium. "Good evening," he began, his voice steadier than he expected. "I'm not one for public speaking." Gentle laughter from the crowd. "But tonight's cause resonates deeply." He paused, finding Maya's face in the warm light. "We often talk about success in terms of profits and portfolios, but true value—" His fingers brushed the note cards he'd prepared, then set them aside. "True value lies in how we care for each other, in the quiet moments of support that go unnoticed, in the hands that steady us when we falter." Camera flashes sparkled softly. Vivian's perfectly manicured fingers tapped her phone screen. "My company, Hart & Vale, pledges $50,000 to the Metropolitan Care Foundation," Elliot continued. "But more importantly, we pledge to expand our employee care benefits, effective immediately, because sometimes the strongest people are those who spend their lives lifting others." The applause started slowly, then swelled. Elliot saw tears in some eyes, proud smiles in others. Maya's expression held something he couldn't quite name, but it made his heart race without triggering any hives. He barely registered, returning to his seat. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of genuine conversations and warm handshakes. People approached not with the usual corporate agenda, but with personal stories of caregiving and gratitude. "You're trending on Twitter," Lydia whispered near dessert, showing him her phone. The foundation's social media team had captured him mid-speech, Maya visible in the background, her face full of pride. More photos appeared throughout the evening. Elliot and Maya sharing a laugh over coffee, him listening intently to a nurse's story, Maya explaining her own caregiving experience to an elderly donor. Each shot captured something authentic, unguarded. "This is a different side of you," one board member commented approvingly. "The public will love it." Across the room, Vivian's red dress caught the light as she moved between tables, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. But for once, Elliot found he didn't care about her machinations. As the evening wound down, Maya helped a slightly dizzy elderly guest to her car, then returned to find Elliot waiting by the coat check. "That was remarkable," she said softly. "I had good support," he replied, helping her with her wrap. Their fingers brushed, and the usual spark passed between them, but now, instead of anxiety, it brought warmth. A final photographer approached. "One more for the Foundation's website?" Elliot normally declined such requests, but tonight felt different. Maya stood beside him, natural and poised. The camera clicked. "Perfect," the photographer said. "This one's going to be special." They didn't know then how right he was. By morning, that photo would be everywhere. The usually reserved CEO and his elegant companion, both slightly turned toward each other, caught in a moment of genuine connection. The internet would call it heartwarming and transformative. Business magazines would label it a masterful PR move. But in that moment, driving home through the quiet city streets, Elliot was focused only on Maya's soft humming from the passenger seat and the strange new feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was finally learning how to breathe. Elliot's phone buzzed incessantly as he dressed for work. Headlines flooded his notifications. Heart and Veil's CEO shows softer side at charity gala. Corporate giant's heartwarming speech goes viral. Who is the mystery woman behind Elliot Hart's transformation? The last one made him pause. He found Maya in the kitchen, already preparing his morning tea. "Have you seen the news?" he asked carefully. She nodded, her movements measured. "It's quite something. Marco called. He saw us on TikTok." The office lobby hummed with unusual energy. Employees quickly tucked away phones as he passed, but he caught whispered fragments. Living with him, the housekeeper, board members concerned. In the executive suite, Vivian Cole stood by the coffee machine, holding court with several department heads. Her voice carried, "Deliberately." Of course, we all support Elliot's charitable efforts, but appearances matter. The board has questions about recent developments. She spotted him and smiled with synthetic warmth. "Elliot, everyone's talking about your speech. Such a departure from your usual style." Before he could respond, his assistant hurried over with an urgent message. 3 board members requested an emergency meeting. The conference room felt stifling. Bernard Chen, the lead director, cleared his throat. "Elliot, we've received some concerning information." He slid across a manila envelope. Inside was a grainy photograph. Maya, years younger, outside what appeared to be a rundown clinic. The photo was clearly chosen to look suspicious. An anonymous source provided documentation about Ms. Reyes's employment history. There are gaps, questions about her credentials, and her current living arrangement with you raises ethical concerns. Elliot's collar felt tight. "Maya's background is irrelevant. She's my employee." "She's more than that, according to social media." Another director interjected. "The optics are problematic." A news crew waited in the lobby. Some tech magazine doing a feature on innovative leadership. Elliot felt the first prickle along his hairline as cameras turned toward him. "Mr. Hart, your speech has gone viral. People are calling it a watershed moment for corporate culture. Any comment on the woman who inspired this change?" Heat crawled up his neck. A hive bloomed visible above his collar. "No comment." He managed, his voice strained. The camera operator zoomed in, probably catching the spreading redness. In his office, Lydia paced furiously. "It's Vivian. She's behind the anonymous tip. She's trying to discredit you both." "I know," Elliot said, loosening his tie. The room tilted slightly. "She's playing on classist prejudices, painting Maya as some sort of suspicious infiltrator. It's disgusting." Lydia's phone buzzed. "Great. Now there's a Twitter thread questioning Heart and Veil's hiring practices." The fluorescent lights seemed too bright. Elliot's breath came shorter. "I'll handle the PR team," Lydia continued. "We'll release Maya's actual credentials, show the context of that photo. It was from her nursing days, helping at a free clinic. For heaven's sake!" Elliot tried to focus on her words, but black spots danced at the edges of his vision. His chest constricted painfully. "Elliot." Lydia's voice sounded distant. "Elliot." He was aware of falling, of Lydia catching him before he hit the ground. Time fragmented. Dr. Patel's familiar voice broke through the haze. "Breathe with me, Elliot. 4 counts in." When his vision cleared, he lay on the office couch. Lydia held his hand while Dr. Patel checked his vitals. Classic panic response, Dr. Patel said quietly. The psychosomatic symptoms are intensifying under stress. We need to address the root cause. I'm fine, Elliot insisted, trying to sit up. You're not, Lydia snapped. This has gone far enough. Vivian's trying to destroy you both, and your body's screaming for you to face whatever you're running from. Dr. Patel nodded. The childhood trauma we discussed, it's manifesting more strongly now that you've allowed someone close. Your system is fighting between trust and terror. A knock interrupted them. Elliot's assistant entered with a stack of messages. Sir, there are reporters in the lobby. The board wants another meeting, and Ms. Cole is giving an informal press conference in the atrium. Lydia swore under her breath. I'll handle Vivian, you rest. But Elliot's phone lit up with a text from Maya. Someone left an envelope at the house, pictures of Marco at school, a warning to know my place. The message sent his heart racing again. Dr. Patel noticed the spike in his pulse. Whatever that is, don't read it now, he advised. Your system needs time to regulate. Elliot handed the phone to Lydia, who read it and turned pale. She's threatening a child. That's it. I'm calling security and our lawyers. She stormed out, already dialing. Dr. Patel helped Elliot sit up slowly. This situation is forcing long-buried issues to surface. You need to decide. Face them now or let them continue controlling you. Through the office windows, Elliot could see reporters gathering below. His phone kept buzzing with notifications. Somewhere in the building, Vivian Cole was spinning her narrative, while at his house, Maya held an envelope containing threats against her family. The hives along his neck burned, a physical manifestation of 20 years of running from truth. Dr. Patel pressed a cold compress to his skin, but they both knew the real remedy wasn't medical. Should I increase your anti-anxiety medication? Dr. Patel asked professionally. Elliot shook his head. For the first time, he didn't want to numb it away. The threat to Maya and Marco had awakened something fiercer than fear. No, he said hoarsely. I need to feel this. I need to remember why it hurts. The headlines screamed across Elliot's laptop screen. Heart and Veil CEO's mystery woman. What is she hiding? Another tab flashed. From boardroom to bedroom, the housekeeper who captured a CEO's heart. His email inbox overflowed with inquiries from tabloids. Request for comment on Ms. Reyes's employment history. Sources claim irregular work patterns. Questions about her relationship with a minor. Each message made his stomach clench tighter. Maya sat across from him in the HR office, her hands folded calmly in her lap as Sharon Peters, the head of human resources, reviewed her file. Your nursing license is current, Sharon noted, scanning the documents. And your references from the hospice center are excellent. However, the board has concerns about the unusual nature of your current position. Maya's voice remained steady. I left nursing to care for my nephew and mother. Mr. Hart offered me stable employment with housing. Everything was properly documented. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Elliot fought the urge to loosen his collar where hives threatened to bloom. And the child in question? Sharon pressed. Marco is my nephew. I have legal guardianship. Maya produced more paperwork, court documents, school records. Sharon's phone buzzed, another board member demanding updates. The inquiry had stretched into its second day, and the pressure mounted with each passing hour. Back in his office, Elliot found an email from Marco's school principal. Due to recent media attention, concerned about disruption, reviewing enrollment status. His hands shook as he opened another message, this one from Maya's mother's landlord. Notice of termination of lease. Property sold. 30 days to vacate. The walls seemed to close in. His phone lit up with Lydia's call. "The board's splitting," she reported. "Half think you've lost your mind, the other half are worried about liability. Vivian's playing them like a violin." Elliot's jaw clenched. He opened a new email. To Vivian, colahartvale.com, subject, "Cease and desist. Your attempts to damage my reputation and harass my employee end now. Any further actions will result in legal consequences." The reply came within minutes. "Concerned colleagues have a duty to question judgment calls that affect company stability. Perhaps if you weren't so personally invested." The message circulated quickly. By afternoon, whispers filled the corridors. Unstable. Compromised. Inappropriate relationship. Maya knocked on his office door, her face drawn. "Marco's school called. Some parents are complaining." Elliot's chest tightened. "I'll have our lawyers handle it." "It's not just that." She placed an envelope on his desk, her mother's eviction notice. "Everything's falling apart because of me." "Because of Vivian," he corrected, but his voice caught. A familiar heat crept up his neck. Maya stepped closer, reaching for him, but he flinched away. The hurt in her eyes made him hate himself more. That evening, photographers lurked outside his house. Maya cooked dinner as usual, but the comfortable silence they'd built felt stretched and brittle. "The board wants me to move out," she said quietly. "They think it would calm the situation." Elliot stared at his untouched plate. His skin felt too tight, crawling with invisible ants. The hives had spread down his arms despite the antihistamines. "I'm sorry," he managed. "I never meant to put you and Marco at risk. We're stronger than they think." Maya reached across the table, but Elliot stood abruptly. "I need to work." The words came out harsher than intended. He fled to his study, locking the door behind him. Alone, he pressed his forehead against the cool window glass. Outside, camera flashes periodically lit up the darkness. His phone buzzed with another board message. "Emergency meeting tomorrow. Vote of confidence. Professional boundaries." The hives burned worse now. He loosened his tie, remembering Dr. Patel's breathing exercises, but his lungs felt constricted. The familiar panic clawed at his chest, the same helpless feeling from childhood, waiting in hospital corridors, watching his mother walk away. Maya's soft footsteps paused outside his study. He heard her gentle knock, her quiet, "Elliot?" He wanted to open the door, to let her calm presence wash over him like it had before. Instead, he turned up his classical music, drowning out her concern. The pressure in his chest built until each breath wheezed. Shame and fear tangled in his throat. He'd tried to protect her, to be stronger than his past, but now his weakness was destroying them both. Marco might lose his school. Maya's mother would lose her home. The company he'd built could slip away because he couldn't control this damn allergy. Another knock, more insistent. "Please let me help." Elliot pressed his palms against his burning eyes. "I need to be alone," he called out, voice rough. "Please." He heard her linger a moment longer before retreating. The silence felt like punishment, self-imposed isolation that was supposed to protect them both, but only left him drowning in remembered abandonment. His laptop chimed with more emails, more accusations, more demands for explanations. The hives spread like wildfire across his skin, worse than they'd been in 20 years. He couldn't face Maya like this, couldn't let her see him falling apart when she needed him to be strong. So he stayed locked away, letting classical music mask his ragged breathing, while outside their carefully built world crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny and private fears. The night stretched endless before him, full of memories he couldn't outrun and a present he might lose because he dared to let someone in. The study walls held him like a prison of his own making, while somewhere in the house, Maya waited, strong and steady as always, offering a grace he didn't know how to accept. The study door had remained locked all day. Maya heard only classical music and typing from within, while messages from the board piled up unanswered on Elliot's phone. As evening settled, she knocked one final time. "Elliot, we need to talk." Silence stretched, then footsteps. The lock clicked. She found him standing by the window, tie loosened, shirt wrinkled. Red patches mottled his neck. His usually immaculate desk was scattered with papers and untouched tea. "I've been thinking," Maya said softly, maintaining distance. "Maybe the board is right. For Marco's sake. No." Elliot's voice cracked. "Please don't leave. The press is hurting my family. Marco's teacher called again today. Some parents want him removed from the school. I'll fix it. I'll make it right." Elliot paced, running trembling fingers through his hair. "I just need time to think clearly." "You haven't eaten all day. You're making yourself sick." Maya stepped closer, noting his shallow breathing. "This isn't sustainable. I can't—" He stumbled, catching himself on the desk. "I can't lose—" His breath hitched sharply. Maya recognized the signs instantly, dilated pupils, racing pulse visible at his throat. "Sit down. You're having a panic attack." But Elliot was already sliding to the floor, one hand clutching his chest. Red welts bloomed across his face and neck. His breathing turned to desperate wheezes. Maya knelt beside him, maintaining professional calm despite her racing heart. "I'm calling Lydia and 911. She pressed speed dial while loosening his tie completely. "Try to match my breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth." Lydia answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Severe allergic reaction. Call 911, then Dr. Patel's emergency line." Maya put the phone on speaker and focused on Elliot. His skin was hot to touch, hives spreading rapidly. She wet her handkerchief with water from his desk and pressed it to his forehead. "The ambulance is coming." Lydia's voice shook. 3 minutes out. I'm on my way." "Stay with me, Elliot." Maya kept her voice steady, professional instincts taking over. "Small sips of air. That's it." His fingers clutched her arm, eyes wide with panic. "Can't breathe." "Yes, you can. You're safe. I'm right here." She demonstrated slow breaths. "Copy me. In, out." Sirens wailed outside. Lydia's heels clicked rapidly down the hall. "They're coming up." Dr. Patel arrived with the paramedics, medical bag in hand. He took one look at Elliot and pulled out a syringe. "Epinephrine first. Then we'll start breathing exercises." The injection went in smoothly. Gradually, Elliot's wheezing eased. The paramedics monitored his vitals, while Dr. Patel led him through measured breaths. "The attack is subsiding," Dr. Patel said after several tense minutes. "But we need to address the trigger." He glanced meaningfully at Maya. "Perhaps some privacy?" "No," Elliot rasped. "She stays." His grip on Maya's arm hadn't loosened. The paramedics packed up, leaving emergency contact information. Lydia hovered anxiously until Dr. Patel suggested she make tea. When they were alone, Elliot's breathing had steadied, but tears leaked from his eyes. "I was 10, he whispered, waiting in the hospital corridor. Dad was working late again. Mum said she was getting coffee." Maya stroked his arm, feeling the hives slowly receding under her touch. "I sat there for hours, counting ceiling tiles, playing with her keychain." His voice cracked. "She never came back. Just walked out. Left me alone with my coin and her keys." "Oh, Elliot." Maya's heart ached. "The nurses found me at midnight. Dad came running. But I couldn't breathe right after that. Doctors said it was stress-induced asthma. Later it became the allergy." He shuddered. "Every time I get close to someone, every time I risk being left again." "I'm not leaving," Maya said firmly. Not unless you tell me to go. Everyone leaves eventually. Not everyone. She squeezed his hand. Some people stay. Some people choose to stay every single day. Elliot's tears fell faster. I'm sorry. For shutting you out. For not being stronger. You're one of the strongest people I know. Maya helped him sit up straighter. But strength isn't about never breaking. It's about letting people help put you back together. Dr. Patel returned with Lydia and tea. They helped Elliot to the couch, where he submitted to another examination. The doctor adjusted his medication, adding anti-anxiety supplements to his regime. The physical symptoms are stress-activated, Dr. Patel explained. But they're no less real for having emotional triggers. We'll need to address both. Lydia hugged her brother fiercely. You scared me to death. I'm okay, Elliot said, though his voice wavered. Maya helped. Of course she did. Lydia gave Maya a grateful look. Because she's family now, whether the board likes it or not. Maya brought Elliot fresh tea, noting how his hands had steadied. The worst of the attack had passed, leaving exhaustion in its wake. But something else had shifted too, as if naming his oldest wound had loosened its hold. Rest, she told him gently. Tomorrow we'll face whatever comes together. Elliot caught her hand as she turned to go. Stay. The word held decades of unsaid things. So Maya sat beside him, her presence steady as a heartbeat, while Dr. Patel discussed treatment plans and Lydia made calls to postpone tomorrow's meetings. Outside, the press cameras still flashed, but in here, in this moment, something broken had begun to heal. The community hospital's archive room smelled of old paper and dust. Maya traced her finger along shelf labels, while Elliot stood awkwardly by the door, his tie loosened after their drive across town. Dr. Patel said the records from that year should be here. She pulled out a heavy binder. Though I'm not sure what we're looking for exactly. Lydia was cryptic about it. Elliot moved closer, his shoulders tense but his breathing steady. She just said there might be something important in the volunteer logs. Maya settled at the small reading table, opening another binder. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as they worked in companionable silence, flipping through yellowed pages of hospital records. I started volunteering here right after nursing school, Maya said softly. Before the hospice work, it feels like another lifetime. Elliot watched her hands move across the pages. What made you start? I wanted to help people feel less alone. She smiled faintly. Hospitals can be scary places, especially for children. Something flickered in Elliot's expression. He pulled another volume closer, this one containing patient admission records. The minutes ticked by. Maya found herself lost in memories of night shifts and quiet corridors until Elliot's sharp intake of breath made her look up. This date. His finger rested on a line entry. September 15th, 20 years ago. That was... He swallowed hard. Maya leaned over to see. There, in faded ink, Mrs. Catherine Hart admitted 6:45 p.m. Her heart began to pound. She reached for the volunteer roster from the same date, scanning quickly. There, at the bottom of the evening shift log, was her own signature. Maya Reyes, Pediatric Ward Support. Elliot. Her voice shook slightly. Look at this. He moved closer, their shoulders touching. His breathing had grown uneven, but no hives appeared. The nurse's notes were brief but clear. Young boy, approx 10, waiting in corridor outside room 304. Mother went for coffee at 7 p.m., has not returned. Child refusing to leave chair, holding coin. Volunteer MR provided blanket and juice, stayed until father arrived at midnight. Maya's memory crystallized suddenly. A small, dark-haired boy clutching a silver coin, counting ceiling tiles in a whisper. She had brought him apple juice and an extra blanket, sat nearby doing paperwork, making sure he wasn't alone. "It was you," she whispered. Elliot's hands trembled as he touched the page. I remember the juice, and someone humming while they worked. I thought it was one of the nurses. I used to hum when I was nervous for the patients. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "You were so quiet, so brave. I didn't want to crowd you, but I couldn't bear leaving you there alone." He turned to her, his face raw with emotion. "You stayed. All those hours. Of course I stayed." She touched his arm gently. "That's what we do for people who need us." Elliot's breath hitched. And now, 20 years later, here we are again. Maya smiled through her tears. They sat in silence for a moment, processing the weight of this connection. The universe's strange choreography had brought them full circle, from that lonely hospital corridor to his carefully ordered home, from a frightened boy to a man learning to trust again. "No wonder," Dr. Patel had said when Lydia showed him the old records. "The body remembers kindness as well as trauma. Sometimes healing comes from recognizing both." Elliot pulled out his wallet and removed something small and silver. "I still have it. The coin." He placed it on the table beside the open records. "I've carried it every day since then, like a reminder." "Of what?" "That I survived, that someone cared enough to stay, even if she left." His voice grew stronger. "And now you're here again, still staying." Maya covered his hand with hers. Neither of them commented on the lack of hives, the easy breath, the way their fingers intertwined naturally. She thought of all the coincidences that had led to this moment. Lydia's stubbornness, Dr. Patel's insight, even Vivian's attempts to separate them. How the universe sometimes took the longest route to bring healing full circle. The volunteer coordinator used to say every act of kindness plants a seed. Maya said softly. "We never know when or how it might grow." Elliot squeezed her hand. "I think this one took 20 years to bloom." They sat together in the quiet archive room, surrounded by papers that had finally revealed their shared past. Through the small window, afternoon light painted patterns on their joined hands. No redness, no reaction, just warmth and connection. Maya thought of the boy with his coin, the man with his careful rituals, and how both needed the same thing. Someone who would choose to stay. Not out of duty or pity, but because staying was as natural as breathing. "Should we take these records to Dr. Patel?" she asked eventually. "Yes." Elliot's thumb traced circles on her palm. "But not just yet." They remained there, letting the moment settle into their bones. The fluorescent lights hummed. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams. And in that small room, full of old papers and older memories, something long broken finally found its way home. The coin gleamed on the table between them, no longer a talisman of loss, but a bridge between past and present, between the boy who waited and the man who learned to trust, between a simple act of kindness and its long, winding path to healing. Maya squeezed Elliot's hand one more time, feeling the steady rhythm of his pulse beneath her fingers. No allergic response, no fear, just the quiet triumph of two people finding their way back to each other across 20 years of waiting. 3 days after discovering their shared past, Elliot stood in his backyard with Maya, studying paint swatches for the guest house renovation. Autumn sunlight warmed the air as leaves danced around their feet. "What do you think about this one for Marco's room?" Maya held up a soft blue sample. "It reminds me of the sky just before sunset." Elliot studied the color, methodically as always, but with a new gentleness in his expression. It's perfect. He'll be able to see it from the main house too, when he's doing homework in the garden. They'd spent the morning reviewing plans for Marco's after-school program application. Elliot had insisted on handling the tuition, brushing aside Maya's protests with uncharacteristic firmness. It's an investment in both our futures, he'd said simply. Now, watching Maya arrange the paint samples with careful attention, Elliot felt that familiar warmth spread through his chest, but without the accompanying anxiety. Dr. Patel had explained it during yesterday's session. Your body is learning new associations, safety instead of threat, connection instead of abandonment. The therapy sessions were challenging but transformative. Just yesterday, they'd practiced exposure exercises, Maya sitting nearby while Elliot deliberately recalled difficult memories. Her presence anchored him, made the past feel less overwhelming. Should we start dinner? Maya gathered the samples, tucking them into a folder. I found your mother's old recipe box this morning while organizing. Elliot tensed slightly, then consciously relaxed. The one with the red flowers. Yes, there's a pasta recipe that looked interesting. In the kitchen, Elliot retrieved the box with steady hands. The old radio on the counter, recently fixed by Marco during a weekend visit, played soft jazz. Maya chopped vegetables, while Elliot measured ingredients with his usual precision. I remember watching her cook, he said quietly, sifting flour into a bowl. She used to let me help on Sundays. I'd stand on a chair to reach the counter. Maya worked beside him, close enough for comfort but giving him space to continue. The last time we made pasta together was 3 days before the hospital. His voice grew softer. I didn't cook again until college. Maya touched his arm gently. But you're cooking now. They worked in comfortable silence, the radio providing a gentle soundtrack. When the pasta was ready, they sat at the kitchen island instead of the formal dining room. Marco's school interview is tomorrow, Maya said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. He's nervous but excited. He'll do wonderfully. Elliot smiled. The science program there is exceptional. His robotics project will impress them. Later that evening, they sat in the study sharing tea. The autumn wind rattled the windows, making the room feel even cozier. Elliot traced the rim of his cup, the same one Maya had first served him tea in, now his favorite. I've been remembering more, he said. Little things. The coin. It was from my grandfather. He gave it to me the week before he passed, said it was for good luck. Maya listened, understanding the weight of these shared memories. That's why I couldn't let it go that night in the hospital. It was my last connection to him. Elliot's voice steadied. But now it feels different. Less like a talisman and more like a bridge. The next afternoon, they gathered in the kitchen with Marco, who clutched his acceptance letter from the science program. His face glowed with pride as Maya hugged him. We should celebrate, Elliot announced, producing a small cake he'd secretly ordered, decorated with chemical formulas in blue icing. Marco's eyes widened. You remembered I like chemistry best. They sat around the kitchen island, eating cake and talking about Marco's project ideas. The boy's enthusiasm was contagious, and Elliot found himself drawing diagrams on napkins, suggesting modifications for the robot design. Maybe we could set up a small workshop in the guest house, he offered. Once your room is finished. Maya watched them, her heart full. This was healing in action, not just for Elliot, but for all of them. A family pieced together through chance and choice and care. Dr. Patel's words from their last session echoed in her mind. Healing isn't just about addressing trauma. It's about building new connections, creating safe spaces where growth can happen. The evening wrapped up with Marco video calling his grandmother to share the news. Elliot stood in the background, watching Maya beam with pride as her mother congratulated them all. Later, after Marco left, Elliot and Maya sat on the back porch. The autumn air was crisp, stars beginning to pepper the darkening sky. The renovated guest house stood as a promise on the horizon. "Thank you," Elliot said quietly. "For what?" "For staying. Both times." Maya understood he meant both now and 20 years ago in that hospital corridor. "Thank you for letting me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. The old wounds were still there, but they were healing. Like the garden after winter, like trust after loss, like hearts learning to open again. Inside, the kitchen radio played softly through the open window. The scent of celebration cake lingered in the air, and in the quiet space between them, something continued to grow, steady and strong and unafraid. A leaf drifted down, landing between them on the porch step. Maya picked it up, admiring its colors, red and gold and brave against the dying light. Like them, she thought, changed by time, but more beautiful for it. Vivian Cole's manicured fingers hovered over her keyboard in the pre-dawn quiet of her corner office. The email draft to Jessica Chen at the Daily Metro was perfectly crafted, each word chosen for maximum impact. "Anonymous source reveals truth about Heart and Veil CEO's mystery woman," read the subject line. She attached carefully selected documents. Maya's mother's eviction notice, highlighted sections of Maya's previous marriage dissolution from 10 years ago, conveniently omitting that her husband had died, and bank records showing a string of modest withdrawals that, taken out of context, could suggest financial desperation. With a satisfied smile, she pressed send. By 9 a.m., the story exploded across social media. "Gold-digging Maid targets billionaire CEO," screamed the headlines. Photos from the charity gala were recycled with sinister captions suggesting manipulation and ulterior motives. In the Heart and Veil boardroom, Richard Thorne, head of the shareholders committee, paced with a tablet displaying the articles. "This is a PR nightmare, Elliot. The stock's already down 3 points." Elliot sat rigid in his chair, his collar feeling tighter by the minute. "These allegations are baseless." "Are they?" Barbara Chen, another board member, pushed forward a folder. "We've received anonymous documentation suggesting Ms. Reyes has a history of strategic relationships." "That's absurd." Elliot's voice cracked slightly. He could feel the familiar tingling starting at his hairline. Vivian watched from her seat, expression carefully concerned. "Perhaps we should consider a temporary separation, for the company's sake." The meeting dragged on for 2 hours. Outside, reporters gathered in the lobby, their cameras ready. Security had to escort Elliot through back corridors, but they still caught him. "Mr. Hart, is it true Ms. Reyes was previously married? Did you know about her financial troubles? Are you being manipulated, Mr. Hart?" The questions hit like physical blows. His chest tightened. Dr. Patel's warning from their morning call echoed in his mind. "Stress can trigger severe reactions. We need to manage your exposure carefully." But there was no managing this. The story spread like wildfire throughout the day. Maya's photo appeared on business news channels, her kind face twisted by suggestive captions and speculation. By afternoon, Elliot's symptoms intensified. His hands shook during a video conference with Tokyo investors. The hives started small, tiny raised bumps along his neck that he tried to hide with his collar. "Mr. Hart," his assistant Margaret interrupted. "There's a crowd of reporters in the lobby. They're demanding a statement." Elliot loosened his tie, fighting for breath. The walls of his office seemed to close in. His phone buzzed constantly. Lydia, Dr. Patel, board members, all demanding responses. At 4 p.m. he had to face the press. The company's PR team insisted silence would only feed speculation. He stood in the marble foyer, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Mr. Hart, what's your response to allegations about Ms. Reyes's past? The first question hit him hard. The tingling spread across his scalp, down his neck. These accusations are... His voice caught. The hives were spreading faster now, visible above his collar. Is it true she's facing eviction? Are you being blackmailed? The room started to spin. His chest constricted painfully. Someone shouted about his visible reaction, cameras clicking frantically. Mr. Hart needs medical attention! Margaret's voice seemed far away. He tried to focus on his breathing exercises, but the air wouldn't come. The last thing he saw was Vivian Cole's satisfied expression from the mezzanine above before his knees buckled. He collapsed in front of rolling cameras, his body betraying him in the most public way possible. Security rushed forward. Phones dialed 911, but the damage was done. His vulnerability, his weakness, broadcast live across every business channel. Through the haze of his closing throat, he heard Margaret calling Maya's name. Flashbulbs continued to pop like tiny explosions. Someone loosened his tie, but it didn't help. Clear the lobby! Security's voice boomed. Everyone out! But it was too late. The image of Hart & Vale's powerful CEO brought low by his mysterious affliction would be tomorrow's headline. His carefully constructed world of control and composure shattered in front of dozens of witnesses. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but those minutes stretched like hours. Through his fading consciousness, Elliot heard snippets of chaos. BP dropping. Severe anaphylactic response. Get those cameras back. The last thing he registered before blackness took him was Maya's voice. Somehow there, steady and sure. I'm here, Elliot. Just breathe. I'm here. But even her presence couldn't stop the avalanche Vivian had unleashed. As they loaded him into the ambulance, news tickers across the city already blazed with updates. Hart & Vale CEO collapses amid scandal. In her office, Vivian closed her laptop with a satisfied click. Phase 1 of her plan had exceeded expectations. The board would have to act now. For the good of the company, of course. She'd positioned herself perfectly as the voice of reason, the one looking out for Hart & Vale's interests. The company's stock price continued its downward slide. Emergency board meetings were scheduled, and somewhere in the city, an ambulance carried Elliot Hart away from the empire he'd built, leaving chaos and questions in his wake. The media circus showed no signs of dispersing. Reporters camped in the lobby, hoping for updates. Social media exploded with theories and speculation. And in the midst of it all, Maya Reyes faced a choice: stay and fight alongside a man who might not survive the battle, or protect her family by walking away. The autumn sun set on a day that had changed everything. Hart & Vale's windows gleamed gold in the dying light, while inside, the machinery of corporate destruction ground on, uncaring about the human cost of ambition and revenge. Elliot drifted in and out of consciousness in the hospital room, machines beeping steadily around him. Maya hadn't left his side since the ambulance arrival, her calm presence anchoring him through waves of medication and exhaustion. The board's demanding updates? Lydia whispered from the doorway, her phone clutched tight. I'm holding them off, but they've called an emergency session for tomorrow. Maya adjusted Elliot's IV line with practiced efficiency. His vitals are stabilizing. Dr. Patel says the reaction was severe but manageable. Through the fog of antihistamines, Elliot watched them, his sister's fierce protection, Maya's steady hands. The hospital room felt both familiar and strange, echoing that long-ago corridor where everything had changed. By evening, social media exploded with theories about his collapse. Lydia worked tirelessly, coordinating with PR to control the narrative. Mr. Hart experienced an acute medical episode. He's receiving excellent care and expects to return to work soon. The truth was more complicated. Dr. Patel visited twice daily, monitoring both physical symptoms and emotional state. The stress triggered a cascade effect. He explained. Your body's responding to perceived threats, both physical and psychological. On the second morning, Marco visited briefly before school. The boy's quiet presence filled the sterile room with warmth as he showed Elliot his math homework. The parish helped Mom with the landlord? He explained. Father Rodriguez knows some lawyers. Elliot watched Maya beam at her nephew's progress, her pride evident despite their circumstances. When Marco left, Elliot finally asked the question that had haunted him. Why did you stay? His voice was hoarse. After everything Vivian leaked, the scandal, you could have walked away. Maya's hand stilled on the blanket she was straightening. Because truth matters more than appearances. She met his gaze steadily. I've spent my life caring for people, Elliot. Real care isn't about convenience or reputation. It's about choosing to be present, especially when things get hard. Her words settled something in his chest that had nothing to do with allergies. Meanwhile, across town, Sarah Chen, a junior reporter at the Business Chronicle, was puzzling over inconsistencies in the leaked documents about Maya. The timestamps didn't match. Following a hunch, she dug deeper into the electronic trail. Look at this, she showed her editor. The anonymous source used the same IP address as previous tips about Hart and Vale, all traced back to their executive floor. The evidence mounted. Carefully edited photos, strategically timed leaks, all leading back to Vivian Cole's office computer. Sarah uncovered emails to tabloid contacts, each laying groundwork for the smear campaign. Back at the hospital, Lydia received the reporter's call. We have proof Ms. Cole orchestrated everything, Sarah explained. Would Mr. Hart care to comment? That afternoon, as Elliot was discharged to continue recovery at home, the board convened their closed session. Shareholders demanded action, stock prices wobbled, and Vivian prepared her power play. But something had shifted in Elliot. Resting in his study that evening, wrapped in the quilt Maya had brought from upstairs, he watched her prepare his evening tea with the same care she'd shown that first day. I'm tired of hiding, he said suddenly. The allergies, the past, all of it. Maya set down the teacup. What are you thinking? I want to tell the truth, all of it, about my mother, the hospital, how you were there that day without knowing, about Vivian's manipulation. He took a careful breath. No more shadows for others to use against us. It won't be easy, Maya cautioned, but her eyes were warm with approval. Nothing worthwhile is. Elliot managed a small smile. I learned that from you. Through the window, they could see reporters still camped at the gate. The board's decision loomed, Vivian's machinations continued, and challenges remained. But here in the quiet study, Elliot felt stronger than he had in years. Dr. Patel visited that evening, reviewing breathing exercises and medications. Remember, he advised, healing isn't linear, but acknowledging truth is often the first step toward recovery. Lydia arrived later with takeout and news. The investigative piece runs tomorrow, she reported. Sarah Chen has Vivian's entire paper trail, the board splitting on how to handle it. They gathered in the kitchen. Elliot, Maya, Lydia, and Marco, who'd stayed for dinner. An unlikely family forged in crisis, sharing spring rolls and planning their next steps. We'll need to prepare a statement, Lydia mused, but Elliot shook his head. Not a statement, an interview, the full story, no filters. He looked at Maya. If you're willing to share it with me. Together. She agreed softly. Marco watched them with wise eyes. Like when you help me with hard homework, he said. Sometimes you have to show all your work to prove you got the right answer. Elliot's laugh surprised them all. Exactly like that. That night, as the house settled into quiet, Elliot reviewed the documents Sarah had uncovered. Vivian's careful plotting laid bare in email threads and digital timestamps. The evidence was damning, but he felt oddly peaceful. Maya found him still reading at midnight. "You should rest," she chided gently. "I will." He set down the papers. "Thank you, Maya. Not just for staying, but for showing me how to be brave enough to stay too." She squeezed his shoulder, understanding all he wasn't saying. Outside, the autumn wind rustled leaves across the lawn, and somewhere in the city, tomorrow's papers were already printing the first hints of truth that would change everything. The Heart and Veil lobby buzzed with anticipation. Journalists packed the space between marble columns, cameras aimed at the podium where microphones clustered like metal flowers. Security guards lined the walls, their faces professionally neutral. Elliot adjusted his tie, a familiar gesture made different by the absence of hives along his collar. Maya had helped him choose the soft blue silk that morning, her steady hand smoothing the fabric, while Marco offered enthusiastic approval. "Ready?" Lydia squeezed his arm. She stood to his left, while Dr. Patel waited quietly on his right, both offering silent support. Elliot nodded, stepping to the podium. Camera shutters clicked like rainfall. "Good morning," he began, his voice clear and measured. "I've called this press conference to address recent speculation about my health and personal life, but more importantly, to speak about truth, compassion, and the courage it takes to face both." He paused, taking a careful breath just as Dr. Patel had taught him. "For most of my life, I've suffered from what appeared to be severe allergic reactions. These episodes were real, documented, and often debilitating. What I didn't understand until recently was their true source." The room fell silent. Even the most jaded reporters leaned forward. 25 years ago, I spent a night in County General's waiting room while my mother received treatment. The next morning, she left, not just the hospital, but our lives entirely. His voice remained steady, though his hands tightened on the podium. I was 8 years old, clutching a coin I'd found on the floor, trying to be brave while my world collapsed. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the back, Maya stood with Marco, her arm around his shoulders. That trauma manifested physically. My body created its own defense mechanism, the allergies that became my shield against emotional vulnerability. It's a documented phenomenon called psychosomatic response. Dr. Aaron Patel can explain the medical specifics, but the simple truth is, I built walls to protect myself, and my body helped maintain them. He gestured to a stack of medical records on the podium. "These documents detail my condition, treatment, and progress. They're available for review, along with Dr. Patel's professional assessments. I'm not here to hide anymore." Cameras flashed as he reached for a second folder. "I'm also releasing documentation regarding Maya Reyes, whose character has been unfairly questioned. Her background check, nursing credentials, and references are included. The truth is simple. She is exactly who she appears to be, a skilled caregiver whose presence in my home has been transformative." Sarah Chen, the investigative intern, stood up from the third row. "Mr. Hart, I have evidence regarding the source of the allegations against Ms. Reyes." She held up a tablet. Emails and digital records show a coordinated smear campaign originating from within Heart and Veil, specifically from Executive Vice President Vivian Cole's office. The lobby erupted. Vivian, standing near the board members, went pale. Sarah continued, her voice carrying. "The timestamps, IP addresses, and email chains prove systematic manipulation of information. I've forwarded all documentation to the board of directors." The board chairman stepped forward, his expression grave. "In light of this evidence, the board has voted to suspend Miss Cole pending a full investigation. We do not condone corporate sabotage or character assassination." Applause broke out, starting with the Heart and Veil employees gathered at the edges of the lobby. Vivian's heels clicked sharply as security escorted her to the elevator. Elliot raised his hand for quiet. This isn't about revenge. It's about honesty and healing. The past months have taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the foundation of real strength. He looked toward Maya, drawing courage from her slight nod. To that end, I'm announcing 2 initiatives. First, Heart and Vale will implement a comprehensive employee wellness program, including mental health support and family care resources. Second, we're establishing a foundation to support caregivers and families facing similar challenges. The chairman stepped up again. The board unanimously approves both initiatives. We believe companies should lead with compassion as well as competence. Social media exploded. Heart Truth and Art Caregiving. Matters began trending. Reporters called questions, but it was a maintenance worker's voice that cut through the chaos. Mr. Hart? The older man spoke from near a column. My wife's been caring for my mother with dementia. This means we'll have support. Yes, Elliot answered simply. That's exactly what it means. Marco broke into a wide grin, his phone lighting up with messages from classmates watching the live stream. Around the lobby, employees wiped tears or nodded approvingly. Even the security guards looked moved. Dr. Patel addressed the medical questions that followed, explaining the intersection of emotional and physical health. Lydia handled the corporate logistics, outlining implementation plans for the new policies. Through it all, Elliot stood straight, breathing easily despite the crowd. When a reporter asked about his current health, he smiled slightly. I'm learning that healing isn't about eliminating sensitivity. It's about building trust, telling truth, and allowing ourselves to be cared for. The press conference concluded with an unexpected moment. A junior employee stepped forward with a small box. Inside lay dozens of coins, pennies, nickels, quarters, collected from staff members who'd heard about young Elliot's hospital vigil. For your foundation, she explained. Every coin represents someone who understands waiting rooms and worry. Elliot's voice wavered for the first time. Thank you, he managed as Lydia accepted the box. Afterward, as reporters filed out and employees returned to work, Maya approached the podium. She didn't speak, just stood beside him while he gathered himself. Through the lobby's glass walls, autumn sunlight painted everything in warm gold. Marco joined them, proudly wearing his new after-school program badge. That was better than my presentation about photosynthesis, he declared, making them all laugh. Dr. Patel checked Elliot's pulse and breathing, both steady, no signs of stress reaction. Well done, he said simply. Lydia was already on her phone, fielding calls about the foundation. Board members gathered in small groups, discussing implementation details. The lobby hummed with purposeful energy. Elliot looked at Maya, finding in her calm smile the same steadiness she'd shown that first day. No hives prickled his skin. No tightness gripped his chest. Just the quiet certainty that truth, once spoken, made room for something new to grow. The evening sun cast long shadows across the Heart and Vale Foundation's new caregiver support center. Elliot adjusted his tie, watching volunteers arrange chairs for tomorrow's opening ceremony. 6 months of careful planning had transformed an old medical building into a warm, welcoming space where families could find resources, rest, and understanding. The inspection passed, Lydia announced, waving a document as she crossed the lobby. We're officially ready to open. The center was just one piece of the change. Heart and Vale's new employee policies had already helped dozens of families. Flexible schedules, remote work options, and caregiver support groups had transformed the corporate culture. Even the board members who'd initially resisted now praised the improved morale and productivity. Vivian's suspension had become permanent after a thorough investigation. She'd taken a position with a competitor, but her tactics had backfired. Heart and Vale stock had risen on the strength of their progressive policies. Marco's science project won first place, Maya said later that evening, showing Elliot photos on her phone. They sat in his garden, their garden now, where Jasmine climbed newly installed trellises. The teenager had thrived at his new school, making friends and joining the robotics club. His regular video calls home were full of excited chatter about experiments and upcoming competitions. Maya's mother was settling into her secured apartment, the foundation having helped negotiate a long-term lease. The building had even installed safety rails and wider doorways to accommodate her mobility needs, small changes that made a world of difference. Dr. Patel's weekly sessions continued, though now they focused more on growth than crisis. Elliot's allergy episodes had become rare, manageable events rather than debilitating attacks. He'd learned to recognize triggers, practice breathing exercises, and most importantly, allow himself to be supported. The caterers are set for Saturday, Lydia said, joining them in the garden. She carried a box containing the repaired teacup, the one Maya had carefully pieced back together months ago. Its gold-traced seams caught the fading light. Saturday. The word made Elliot's heart skip, but not from anxiety. They'd chosen a simple ceremony. Close friends, family, the garden at dusk. No press, no corporate politics, just truth and belonging. Marco appeared, proudly wearing his new suit. "Mom, the fairy lights are tangled again." He'd started calling Maya Mom naturally, the word falling into place like the last piece of a puzzle. They worked together, stringing lights through the jasmine while sharing the day's small victories. A board member's spouse had found respite care through their program. An employee's child with special needs had received specialized equipment. The Foundation's support hotline had fielded its first 100 calls. "Remember this?" Maya held up an old volunteer roster, the one from the hospital archive. They'd framed it, along with the coin Elliot had clutched as a boy. Not to dwell on past pain, but to honor the path that had led them here. Friday evening brought final preparations. Lydia directed the placement of chairs while Dr. Patel helped arrange potted herbs, Maya's idea, filling the air with rosemary and mint. Marco tested the sound system, music drifting soft and sweet through the growing darkness. "You're breathing steady," Maya noted, touching Elliot's wrist. She'd kept her nurse's habit of checking vital signs, though now it was more comfort than medical necessity. "I'm not afraid anymore," he replied simply. Saturday arrived clear and warm. Guests gathered as the sun began its descent. Dr. Patel and his wife, Lydia and her partner, Marco's favorite teacher, a few trusted colleagues. Maya's mother sat beaming in her wheelchair, a handmade shawl around her shoulders. The repaired teacup sat on a small table filled with jasmine blooms. They'd decided against traditional rings. This felt more meaningful, more them. A symbol of something broken made whole again, stronger at its mended places. Lydia spoke first, her voice carrying easily in the intimate space. She talked about transformation, about the courage to change and grow. Dr. Patel added his own words about healing and trust. Then Marco stepped forward, surprising everyone with a short speech. "You both taught me that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who helps you become your best self." His voice cracked slightly, but his smile was sure. Maya wore a simple cream dress, her hair crowned with jasmine. Elliot had forgone his usual suit for light linen. They joined hands as the last sunlight painted the garden gold. Their vows were quiet, honest things. Maya spoke of care that goes beyond duty to love. Elliot promised presence, trust, and the courage to keep growing. The gathered family, chosen and blood, witnessed their words with happy tears and warm smiles. As dusk deepened, they shared tea from the mended cup, their fingers brushing against the golden seams. Fairy lights twinkled through the jasmine, and somewhere a night bird began to sing. Later, after the small crowd had dispersed with hugs and well wishes, they stood together in the garden's peace. Marco helped his grandmother inside, their quiet laughter drifting back through the open door. Elliot fumbled slightly, preparing one last cup of tea. Maya steadied his hands, laughing softly at his concentration. The familiar scent of chamomile rose between them. "Look," she whispered, pointing to the windowsill where they'd placed the repaired teacup. The fairy lights reflected in its golden seams, making the mended places glow like stars. Elliot drew her close, breathing in the mingled scents of jasmine and tea, feeling the steady beat of both their hearts. No hives threatened, no panic tightened his chest, just the quiet certainty of belonging. They placed the steaming teacup beside its mended companion. Through the window, they could see Marco setting up his telescope, ready to show his grandmother the evening stars. Lydia's car pulled away with a gentle honk, and Dr. Patel's final words of congratulation echoed in the peaceful dark. Tomorrow would bring the Foundation's opening ceremony, new families to help, more stories of healing to witness. But tonight was for this: the soft glow of lights, the warmth of joined hands, the sweet scent of jasmine, and the understanding that some things, once broken, can be rebuilt into something even more beautiful. Maya smiled, touching the teacup's golden seams. "Second chances look good on us," she said softly, and Elliot knew she was right.